and welcome to TheAIbumMan. And today I'm going to be, for my first, new release review of 2015. So previously in 2015 I have reviewed Fly on the Wall by AC/DC. Check that out if you're at all interested in AC/DC. I'm going to be taking a look at, let's try and say his name, +4626 Comfortzone by Beardfish. Why they needed such an overtly complex name, I have no idea, but I mean, no band called Beardfish, and if you like the band or not, you have to admit that is a damn cool name. So for the unacquainted, who the hell are these guys? Well, they're a Swedish progressive rock band, and one of the groups that I would say are really at the top of the sort of 70s prog revival scene. They take those classic elements of Yes, Genesis, all the usual suspects you expect in a 70s prog revival band. But I feel Beardfish really adds an interesting spin and a uniqueness, particularly in their genre dipping on their different albums. Now, I personally became aware of this band when they supported Flying Colours in 2012, which is the Mike Portnoy Neil Morse supergroup, which I absolutely love that band. And the song that particularly took my breath away when they performed it live was from 2011's Mammoth, and I think it's And If the Stones Said I Could Speak. To me, this really was just one of the best modern prog epics I'd heard in, well, ever, to be quite honest. I really don't feel it's too out of place talking about it alongside such classics as Close to the Edge and Supper's Ready, Carnival 9. I really think it's such a good song. And in 2012, they released The Void, and it's really this, The Void, this album, and Mammoth, that are the ones I'm most familiar with when it comes to Beardfish's discography. Now, I know many fans do prefer their earlier work for its sense of humour and more classic Beardfish sound, but for me, definitely, I would say Mammoth is my favourite up to this point, but does this album eclipse it? Well, we'll have to see. On 2012's The Void, they really seem to go more into a prog metal territory as opposed to 2011's Mammoth, which went in more of a jazz rock territory. I kind of thought that Comfortzone, they might continue their foray into more progressive metal territories, but here they really stray away from that almost entirely. Yes, there are remnants of the sound across this album, but I would go as far to say this is more of an album like maybe Destined Solitaire and the earlier Beardfish catalogue. If you like that classic Beardfish sound, I really think you're going to find a lot to enjoy on this album. Now, thematically, while this isn't a concept album per se, the album does seem to rotate around a number of key themes, which seem to be, loosely speaking and roughly, about sort of like breaking free from the mundane and mediocre and tedium of everyday life, I suppose. That's certainly what the album seems to say to me. And this is particularly amplified by the often interesting and sometimes witty, introspective lyricism that goes throughout this album. And I really think the first track on this album, well, the first proper track, because we have the one inside, but part one, we'll talk about that a bit later with the other ones, Hold On, and that really demonstrates, I would say, what they're going for with this album just brilliantly. Hold On straight off the bat reminds me of Yes, with its clever vocal melodies and hooks, on top of a song that musically ventures all over the place, with the song slowing and speeding up, creating harmonies out of nowhere, and the bass line roaring through dominant, and holding this sort of loose 7-minute jam all together. So why does this song really encapsulate the album? Well, it's because, to me, Beardfish are able to do what many other modern prog acts have struggled at and failed at, and what separates the great modern prog acts from the, well, not so great ones. They're able to balance not being too completely self-indulgent, but yet also maintaining that key complexity and musical diversity across an album and a same song, and particularly in the musical diversity. I found other contemporary prog acts to really just sort of take like a band sound, like say Genesis, and it just feel like it's almost a facsimile. But Beardfish, they wear their influence on their sleeve, sure, but when you listen to a Beardfish album, you know it's Beardfish, and Hold On is very Beardfish. I also found the sort of title track Comfortzone to be a particular highlight, with this beautiful lead guitar melody inviting the listener in to the song as the backdrop begins to swell with Rickard's keyboards and Robert's bass in particular, creating a certain lushness in the instrumentation. It really is a beautiful song, and that is definitely the word I use to describe this, with Rickard's vocal delivery particularly emphasising that, as the first verse and some of the lighter passages of the song are really sincere and tender, with an underlying vulnerability, I feel, in the vocal delivery. And this particular song seems to really talk about breaking away from small town culture and just getting away from, again, that sort of mundane tedium of life, really. And as the lyrics become more impassioned, the music reflects this, soaring higher and becoming more intense. While I found Hold On to be more of a musically driven song where the music drove where the vocals went, I found Comfort Zone to be a song where the vocals really drove the music, and I really liked the difference between that. It just helps to create a more direct and accessible, yet still brilliantly proggy sound, especially as the mellotron's used here, and damn do I love a good mellotron in my prog. Though the standout track, the Magnus opus on this album, has to be, I mean, it's one of my new favourite Beardfish songs, If We Must Be Apart, A Love Story Continued. Oh, this track is simply sublime. And for some reason I've seen a few reviews mislabel this track as being called Ode to Rock and Roller, which is the track after. Ode to Rock and Roller is not the 15-minute epic, just to clarify. If We Must Be Apart is the 15-minute epic. And yeah, If We Must Be Apart really is a colourful, eccentric, swirling musical landscape as it takes you on this varied and engaging journey. Well, the music is an immediate draw. Really, it's the lyricism I would find that's one of the biggest draws for this song, as it's simple yet effective as Rickard tells just a love story with a nice little twist at the end that you don't necessarily see coming. The song after the intro really starts plainly enough with an acoustic guitar, maracas coming in to add some percussion, and giving Rickard's voice a platform to shine, which it does. It's definitely worth singling out Rickard's voice, as his vocal range is fantastic and his ability to express emotion is really what makes him such a dynamic and captivating vocalist, able to do the delicate parts just as well as the intense, heavier parts. And they really go all out with this song, energy and abundance, combining many different aspects of their sound. This song, again, is just the culmination of their sounds, from chirpy keyboard lines to pulsating bass and dominating heavy-hitting sections, organs punctuating occasionally in a sort of a Genesis-like style. And after the song's sort of false ending halfway through, we hear about some black magic and the song turns suitably dark, and really I could waffle on ad nauseum about the strength of this song, but all I really need to say is if you love 70s prog bands of old, but mixed with something a bit refreshing, a bit more of a modern take, then you're gonna love this track. I really think so. Speaking before of Ode to Rock and Roller, that's definitely a track that's worth mentioning. I mean, it's difficult to follow a tale as epic as Love Apart, but instead of trying to top it with Ode to Rock and Roller, they instead go for something a bit more, well, fun and funny, and in a more humorous direction. Though this song definitely still feels interconnected to the album's core themes. Lyrically, it's definitely one of the most fun, yet not completely stupid songs that I've heard in a long time, and honestly quite a breath of fresh air. It seems to be about sort of like a ward guitar player in a local cover band or something like that, and telling his story about how hard it can be to do something interesting, as the guitarist seems to play some of, I think it's Stravinsky's Rite of Spring in like the heat of the moment in his performance, and then the crowd turns against him and boos him, and you have this brilliant lyrical refrain of they didn't come to listen, they just came to drink, so play those three chords over and over so they don't have to think. I think that's a very, very clever line, and I really like it a lot. Very insightful, to the point, yet it definitely has that element of truth about it. And I love the way he describes sort of the average rock punter, the one who really doesn't want to hear anything new. They just want to hear sort of bands like AC/DC or classic rock and want to hear Metallica just pump out the same thrash. They don't really want musical evolution. They think they do, but they actually don't, and they refer to them as buttholes. It's definitely a different thing on this album. While there's always been humour prevalent in Beardfish's sound, it's definitely in the last couple of albums I'd say waned slightly, and here this is really one of the best examples of the execution of it. Simultaneously, this is one of the most depressing songs of its themes of almost kind of hopelessness for the modern rock scene, but yet also a fun, exhilarating track that soars to high octane levels, driving hard rock vibe, some of Rickard's best vocals. At times he's practically shouting and screaming, yet others delicately singing over an acoustic guitar with an immense chorus. Brilliant track. The saying all this positivity, there are a couple of songs that I personally don't feel work quite as well. One of these is Daughter/Whore. This takes a heavier, darker, far more aggressive, more The Void type approach to the sound, and will provide some genre variety. I mean, hey, I love faster and heavier music. I really just don't find the melodies to be as engaging, and I don't find the music to work quite as well as the other tracks on the album. I just feel like Daughter/Whore is almost a little disjointed in places. Yes, prog is meant to venture in many different directions, maybe all over the place, but I just find it, yeah, as I said, that bit too, maybe incohesive. I mean, there really isn't a bad track on here, but it's just one that doesn't resonate as well with me. And it's the same song like King. Again, it's, well, at times it is heavier, and even though I love the part where it has these sort of heavier, almost distorted vocals, I just don't feel that it's as well composed as the others. Maybe it's just a testament to the strength of the other tracks on this album. But King isn't a song I'd really ever listen to alone, unlike the other ones. I'd happily, if I was on shuffle and came across them, be like, yeah, awesome. King, I'd probably skip, and same with Daughter/Whore. But saying that, I really don't think these albums detract significantly from the flow of the album. It really is an album from end to end. I can easily listen to it. It really does stay engaging and maintains a very high quality of modern prog throughout. I admit it did take a couple of listens for me to quite appreciate the immensity of what they'd achieved on here, and it's definitely not one I just slap on in the background. It's one I pay attention to, give maybe 2-3 listens for it to really sink in. It was after about 3 listens I really found this album started to grab me and unveil itself. And honestly, I dare say this is one of, if not the best thing they've done that I'm really familiar with. As I said, I'm not really familiar enough with Destin Solitaire or the Sleeping Traffic's Part 1 and 2, and I haven't actually had the debut album at all. So I can't really comment on the quality of those as much as an experienced Beardfish fan. All I can say is I love the flow throughout this album. While there is a focused sound, it still goes in many directions. The keyboards and bass are definitely the highlights of this album. Though, of course, there are guitar-centered tracks like King, Daughter/Whore, which I talked about before. I also like, from an album perspective, how the album's punctuated by the shorter The One Inside, Part 1, 2 and 3, Part 1 and 3 bookending the album, and 2 coming slap back in the middle. And these provide a quieter, more introspective element to the album, and definitely just help break the flow, help break some of all the progginess going on, and definitely sort of is a palate cleanser before moving on to the next track, and I think it's a really nice structure they've got here with the album. I mean, honestly, this may be one of the first reviews of 2015, but I think this is going to be one of the strongest prog albums when it comes to the end-of-year list for 2015. If it wasn't for Steven Wilson coming out with a new album soon, I might say this could be prog king of 2015, but who knows, there's many great prog releases slated for this year, but this is certainly going to be in the upper echelon. 8.25 out of 10, very strong album from Beardfish, highly recommended for any prog fan, old or new. This has been TheAIbumMan, thanks for watching, comment, subscribe, and as usual, long live rock and roll.